Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook. My name is Mike Hoffman, and I am thrilled to be serving as your worship associate this morning. I'm serving today along with our service leader, Lou Yedwab. As of this week, I'm also pleased to say that our interim minister is the Reverend Madeline Campbell, and our Director of Religious Education is Deb Little. I want to offer a special welcome to any of you who are visiting us for the first time today. We're delighted to have you here, and we look forward to getting to know you better. Please plan to stay following the service and join us as our guests for coffee hour, where you'll find lots of friendly folks to answer any questions you may have about us. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion with an orientation towards inclusion, diversity, equity, and social justice. We have no theological creed you must accept to belong here. We're a community of seekers, united by our 7 principles and guided by 6 sources of wisdom, which you will find on the back of our order of service. You'll find lots more information on our website, which is at UUFSB.org, and also on our denominational website at UUA.org. We welcome and value people of all gender expressions, races and ethnicities, religious and social backgrounds, ages and abilities. Our services vary greatly in content and style, so we invite you to return several times to get a true idea of who we are as a community of faith. We hope you will find inspiration for your mind, comfort for your heart, and nourishment for your soul. But first, before we move on, I have some important announcements for you. As I noted, we now have an interim minister who will be with us for the next 2 years, Pastor Madeline Campbell. I'd like to share with you a bit about her background and qualifications. Pastor Madeline is a minister in full fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association. She earned her Master of Divinity at Wesley Theological Seminary in May 2014 and her Doctor of Ministry at the same school in just this past May, with extensive coursework in Hebrew Bible, Biblical Hebrew, and religion and the arts. She also earned a certificate in the arts and theology there as well. She is experienced in preaching, teaching, and storytelling. She's a certified Master Biblical Storyteller through the Academy of Biblical Storytelling and earned this in 2018. Prior to entering the ministry, Pastor Madeline was a family nurse practitioner in primary care practice and a critical care nurse. She was also a university lecturer in nursing, classroom, and clinical settings. And perhaps most notably, she's currently a massive fan of Doctor Who and a lover of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's all help her feel welcome here. So just a couple of notes for upcoming services. On September 4th, Pastor Madeline will be in our pulpit for the first time. Following the service, there will be a blessing of the backpacks by Pastor Madeline. Children and youth are encouraged to bring their backpacks with them that day. And on September 11th, the following week, the service will be our homecoming service and will include a water ceremony. All who attend are encouraged to bring some water from home, not from travel locations as we have done in the past. And finally, please take note that these services are streamed live on YouTube. So for those attending in person, if you did not wish to appear on camera in the live stream, please see an usher who can show you where you may sit so that you won't be seen on camera. Now, please silence your cell phones and let your mind clear and center yourself with the sounding of our morning bell as we prepare for our worship together. Please stay silent until the bell can no longer be heard. I've asked Carolyn Loofborough to come forward to light our chalice this morning. And if you are with us online, you may wish to light a candle of your own. Our chalice lighting words today are by Marjorie Montgomery. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of our earthly home. Thank you, Carolyn. Our service leader today is Lou Yedwab. Lou is relatively new to the UUFSB, having begun visiting services in late 2013 and joining officially in 2014. His initial inclination to come aboard was confirmed by our music, like myself. Famously, at least in his own mind, the moment that clinched his decision was when Greg Galuccio sang the Beatles' "Tomorrow Never Knows" during a service. He thought, if this is church music to these people, they're all right with me. Lou originally hails from New Jersey. He followed his job from there to Smithtown in 1984 and has been an intermittently proud Long Islander ever since. His first reaction to moving to Long Island was the thought, a suburb is a suburb is a suburb. And his initial assessment of Suffolk County was, it's like Paramus, but with sand. Lou began his career in the mildewed basements of the television industry, working first as a tape librarian for New Jersey Public Television and training informally as an associate director on live newscasts. This ambition was doomed by his nervous disposition and corresponding inability to operate a stopwatch with anyone watching. His TV career limped along through 1984 and that move to Long Island, where his title was absorbed into the MTV, Nickelodeon, Showtime broadcast facility in Hauppauge. There, he specialized in adding unscheduled dead air to post-midnight showings of Green Acres on Nick at Night. When his complaints about lack of training in his workplace were turned back upon him, he wound up writing procedural manuals for operating the numerous programming sources that originated from the facility. Grim as that might sound, it led to his current career as a technical writer, which began in early 1998. To this day, Lou has been known to get down on his knees and thank the universe for nearly 25 years of working daylight hours with weekends and holidays off. And Lou will now read our opening words, which is the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Lou?
I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
I see a bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and lightning. I see bad times today. Don't go around the night, well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. I hear hurricanes are blowing. I know the end is coming soon. I hear rivers overflowing. I hear the voice of rage and ruin. Don't go around the night, well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Hope you've got your things together. Hope you are quite prepared to die. Looks like we're in for nasty weather. One eye is taken for an eye. Well, don't go around the night, well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. Don't go around the night, well, it's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise.
Guys. Please join now in singing hymn number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. Please stand as you are willing and able. It is our spiritual practice to have a meditation in words, in silence, and in song. I will start with words by Dag Hammarskjöld, former Secretary General of the United Nations. Then we'll have 1 minute of silence, and we'll come out of the silence with hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. If you don't know it, you may want to have your hymnal open to that page. I am being driven forward into an unknown land. The pass grows steeper, the air colder and sharper. A wind from my unknown goal stirs the strings of expectation. Still the question, shall I ever get there? There where life resounds, a clear, pure note in the silence. Thank you, Joanne. During each service, we engage in the spiritual practice of generosity with a collection that is shared between our fellowship and a local organization working for social justice, consistent with our UU principles. During the summer months, we are focusing on hunger issues on Long Island. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of August is Bethel Hobbs Community Farm. This farm was established by the Hobbs family in the early part of the 20th century, and it was the last African-American-owned farm on Long Island. Upon the death of Alfred Hobbs in 1996, the property was left to Bethel AME Church and is now managed as a 501c3 not-for-profit organization. It provides an average of 30,000 pounds of fresh organically grown produce to local food pantries and soup kitchens. Their education center hosts events for small groups, a community garden with garden plots for individuals, and a wheelchair-accessible garden with raised beds. You can go to their farm stand on Saturdays and also participate in their community-supported agriculture program. It's not too late to sign up for the fall. Please offer your generous support to the Bethel Hobbs Community Farm as they continue to plant seeds of hope. And as our board members pass the plates here, those of you online will find the link to the donate button on our worship in chat, and we can all enjoy the music of Linda, Rich, John, and Lee.
Hi. I'm here to talk about a 1984 book called Warday, one word, by Whitley Strieber and James Q. Netka. One little remark that Mike didn't know about in my remarks. I like this book so much, I have a loaner copy in the car, if anybody's interested. I'm serious. But first, a word about me, which will go a long way toward explaining why this book resonates for me so strongly. Like a lot of you, I'm a true Cold War kid. I was born in 1957 when the Cold War was really banging away. I was 5 years old at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. For a time, Dad worked under Warner von Braun, for real. Later, Dad became a civilian battery engineer who worked on weapons for the United States Army. Dad went on to work on nuclear weapons systems. Aside from complaining about bureaucracy and administrative malpractice, Dad never talked about the specifics of his work. But between my natural interest in the space program and the whiz-bang high end of armed conflict, I was much too aware of the bomb when I was little. There was the time I dreamed of being awakened by something in the night. In the dream, I was relieved to see a burglar looming in my bedroom window instead of a mushroom cloud in the distance. Every time I heard the alto moan of a town-wide fire siren, I nervously hoped I was correctly distinguishing it from an air raid siren. I much preferred the higher-pitched, faster cycling sounds of police sirens. Then there's the part that could be characterized as parental misjudgment. When I was 7 years old, my parents took me along to the drive-in when they saw Dr. Strangelove. Yeah. They knew I was a pretty smart kid, so I don't know what they thought about the chances are that it would go over my head. Hashtag, it didn't. I don't remember if it was the same year when both came out, but I was also allowed to see Failsafe at an all-too-tender young age. That also failed to go over my head. I remember fixing on the shrill sound of our ambassador's phone melting when we bombed Moscow as part of the president's deal with the devil. But back to Warday, much cheerier. The authors grew up together and served in Vietnam together. James Cunetka has been a respected journalist in Texas and served as an administrator at the University of Texas in Austin. He's written a number of books, including 3 about Los Alamos and Robert Oppenheimer. The better known of the 2 authors is Whitley Strieber, who back in the 70s and 80s, wrote several successful novels, including 3 that turned into major motion pictures. There was The Wolfen with Albert Finney and Gregory Hines, The Hunger with Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon and David Bowie, and then my favorite, Communion, with Christopher Walken playing Whitley himself. At some point, Strieber complained that Walken was playing him too crazy, in response to which Walken said something to the effect of, well, if the shoe fits. In Warday, like Communion, Whitley's wife and son appear as characters. In the first chapter, looking back at the war of the title, Whitley offers a word of self-description. Before the war, I was a middle-range novelist. We were fat and happy then. My horror stories were successful because happy people crave the luxury of artificial fear. I wouldn't write one now. The very idea is loathsome. Warday's plot is extremely simple. World War III happens. The moderately famous novelist is at home in New York and gets a fairly serious dose of radiation, despite the near miss that more or less spares the city. He remains on his feet, but is left with the near certainty of a sharply reduced lifespan. Novelist and his family make their way cross-country to their native Texas. Novelist reunites with childhood friend, the esteemed journalist. 5 years after the war, novelist and journalist set out across America to document what it's like out there. Along the way, they witness the grotesque aftermath of nuclear warfare and hear countless uplifting stories of human kindness. They reach New York, document its salvage and eventual abandonment, and go home to Texas to write this book. The whole schmear starts in 1998, arguably the height of the Cold War. Depending on what you're reading, any year between 1946 and 1990 could be considered the height of the Cold War. Ronald Reagan's nameless successor is deploying Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, if any of you remembers that little fave. In hindsight, we, the reader, learn that the United States had badly overestimated the Soviet Union's strategic capabilities to the point where the Soviets preemptively pushed the button upon realizing that we'll be able to take out their missiles in a shooting war. This strategic boo-boo comes to light after the war in an interview recorded in Dallas with the Undersecretary of Defense, who was aboard Air Force One on Warday. Before the text of the interview, Whitley vividly describes the former bureaucrat to us. There is an almost lyrical terror in this man. It is an emotional state, perhaps, beyond guilt. I don't think it has a name. And from that fictional interview, there had been a massive failure on the part of Western intelligence to correctly evaluate the Soviet response to the employment of SDI. Although I was not a party to the decision to employ SDI, I am trying to come to grips with the fact that I was assisting in the management of a system of defense that had drifted into a state of extreme brittleness. Those of you who know me might recall me saying that one of my favorite motivations in life is the avoidance of guilt. Well, I feel a little guilty about having worked on this at work when I should have been working on other things. Imagine thinking, even wrongly, that you had helped cause the deaths of millions of people. I don't remember when I ran across Warday, but it's turned out to be one of those books that I reread at least every couple of years. Despite never ascribing a message to it, the commitment to this service led me to one. It's pretty simple. Beware of darkness. Our worst angels are always perched on the other shoulder, watching for flaws in our racial character, ready to seize advantage. Fight the good fight and don't quit. There's too much at stake. At least that's what I've gotten out of it. And I really struggle with this kind of thing. Despite a lifetime of accusations that I think too much, I'm not real big on subtext in other people's writing or even my own. Warday is to me just a great work of fiction. It's got politics and technology and the best behavior that people are capable of, as well as the absolute worst kind of genocidal bullshit that we can get up to. For all that, though, it can be summed up quickly. Number one, stupid stuff sparks World War III, which is so effective that it extinguishes itself by immediately killing off the leaders who started it. The result is a limited nuclear exchange. Thank God for small favors. Number two, humanity survives by a wide margin, but nonetheless, millions of people die. Number three, that sucks. Number four, the world order changes. Number five, the end. I'm never going to be in a position like that dude on Air Force One, but thinking about this book has me concentrating anew on something that's bothered me for years now. I never actually do very much to further my lofty liberal peacenik values. I vote for the right folks. I donate to the right causes. I've tried to write song lyrics justifying the notion that all I can do is donate and vote. But marching? Forget about it. I got flat feet and stomach issues. But writing letters and postcards for good causes, the very things my wife does all the time, all I got there is a mea culpa, which leads me to the rest of this talk. Our most famous crisis of the moment is, of course, climate change. Unfortunately, though, the threat of nuclear war has never really gone away. I briefly relaxed about this unpleasant subject in the early 90s, when it looked like the former Soviet Union was going to join the rest of the world and behave. But then, you-know-who came to power over there, and I wasn't much reassured by our then president's assertion that he saw no evil in the man's soul. Although climate change is hotter politically as an existential threat, we can't really ignore this other absurdly unnecessary sword of Damocles. The two crises are adjacent chapters in the same story. Note that the name of the famous organization is Greenpeace. My best Marco Rubio impression. I haven't a clue what Strieber and Kunetka were thinking when they conceived of Warday. Did they hope to scare people into activism toward nuclear disarmament? Were they counseling optimism and faith with their emphasis on human good? I don't know, but this grim, harrowing, often poetic work does not shortchange our better angels. There is extensive discussion of relief efforts by Japan and particularly Great Britain. British doctors and administrators are among the few heroes of this story. They act with mercy and compassion while agonizing over life and death decisions, driven by the sheer number of dead and their limited resources. Another fictional interview gives voice to a young woman turned by the war from a freelance writer living it up in New York City to a junior high school teacher in rural Pennsylvania. She recounts the arrival of the British relief in her adopted town. They are initially mistaken for a Russian occupying force. After describing her newfound love of all things British, including the salted kippers that the relief brings, she goes on to talk about the visit. The visit, as it happens, is a randomly awarded stopover by British royalty, in this case, Prince Andrew, of all people. Mind you, this is written in 1984. The prince displays great interest in the effectiveness of the relief and inspects the town facilities to determine its need for medical supplies. On leaving, Andrew gifts the town a pile of British books about American literature and an unlimited supply of antibiotics. Meanwhile, Japan is sending road crews and materials to the American Southwest to restore the highways that connect the U.S. with the new Native American Hispanic state of Aztlan, which has sprung up along Mexico's border with Texas. Aztlan is another example of human duality. When Whitley and Jim arrive, when Whitley and Jim interview its president, he brags to them about Aztlan's gentle, enlightened socialism, its tolerance of political dissent, and the foreign aid that it's sending to Mexico. On the other hand, he must admit to a certain few casualties that occurred when Native Americans repatriated the town of Roswell. Throughout this book, we see that people's hands are going to continue getting dirty and bloody, despite the brutally clear object lesson that the world has just taught itself. But we also see people's good nature, especially love, rising up to heal the world after the two bullies knock each other silly. Love and fellow feeling are hard to eradicate as long as there are humans around to form something called community. Junior high school kids are still falling in love in dusty Midwestern towns, and a train of orphans being shuttled between government facilities. 10-year-olds step up to take care of motherless infants. When Georgia State Police try to turn the orphan train back due to a When Georgia State Police tried to turn back the orphan train due to a bureaucratic mix-up, the passengers are rallied to their defense by a feisty funeral director. Warday starts with a lurid tale of people killing each other, but it's full of people taking care of each other too. You can see it strictly as a cautionary tale, as I said earlier. Our worst angels are always perched on that other shoulder, ready for mayhem. So fight the good fight, because there's so much at stake. But there are other big and positive ideas afoot, too. After they've schlepped back across the country, our author reflects on an idea right out of our own seventh principle, from Jim's last thoughts to himself while he stares out of the orphan train as it slices through immigration-controlled California. Watching the towns go by, the flash of a main street or a town square, big leafy trees, kids waving from the back of horses, I felt something I have never felt before, that under the circumstances was rather curious. I did not feel alienated at all, even though I could not walk freely down those streets, nor even set foot on this soil. I hope that's what I felt never leaves me. It was a closeness to my fellow human beings, as if the very concept of the stranger was false, as if the borders, the restrictions, were also all false. We belong to one another. In a sense, we are all married, one to all. Mind you, of the two, Jim is the reporter, presumably less inclined to flowery speech than his buddy Whitley, the novelist. Here's a bit of Whitley's final internal monologue as he sits up on his first night back home in Texas. A mockingbird sings, leaves rustle. I respect how fine a moment the world can yet make. In retrospect, the war seems odd and exotic, as if it was fought not by us, but by innocents disguised as ourselves, who in their fury forgot how fragile we all are. I sit with my pad on my knees. Music comes to me, an unknown melody, and an image of my son rises in my mind. I want to allow myself to have hope for him and his generation. If only we have gained wisdom from the fire, if only we can accept how alike we all are, one and another. And there it is, folks, how alike we all are, one and another. Everybody wants their kids to be healthy and safe. Everybody wants to lay down their tired body someplace that's clean and safe. Everybody wants enough to eat and love and community. What are we doing to further those goals, to achieve them for everybody? What am I doing about those things? I forgot to introduce the music, sorry.
Our closing hymn today is number 160, Far Too Long by Fear Divided. For our closing words, I offer two prayers. The first one a Jewish prayer, and the second one a Christian prayer. Grant us the ability to find joy and strength, not in the strident call to arms, but in the stretching out our arms, to grasp our fellow creatures in the striving for justice and truth. And save us from weak resignation to violence. Teach us that restraint is the highest expression of power, that thoughtfulness and tenderness are the mark of the strong. Help us to love our enemies, not by countenancing their sins, but remembering our own. For our closing music, we'll hear Linda, Rich, John, and Lee sing and play Don't Let It Bring You Down by Neil Young.
Side of the road where the lorries rolling by, blue moon sinking from the weight of the load, and the buildings scrape the sky. Cold wind ripping down the alley at dawn, and the morning paper flies. Dead man lying by the side of the road with the daylight in his eyes. Don't let it bring you down, it's only castles burning. Just find someone who's turning, and you will come around. night with an answer in his hand. Come on down to the river of sight and you can really understand. Red lights flashing through the window in the rain. Can you hear the sirens moan? White cane lying in a gutter in the lane. If you're walking all alone, don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning. Just find someone who's turning and you will come around. Don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning. Just find someone who's turning and you will come around. Don't let it bring you down. It's only castles burning. Just find someone who's turning and you will come around.
The words for our benediction are by Laura Lynn Bellamy. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Amen. Namaste. Go in peace.
Well, I still haven't done anything on the shoulder, but good to see you. Good to see you guys. Yeah. He told me last time about it. The fact that Long Island surgeons said that you can't do it, that's not necessarily final. I just keep thinking, but at my age to go through another 6 months or whatever. Anyway, whatever.
Good job, Barry.